Okay, good morning, everybody. I have 8 a.m. on Thursday, the 27th of October. I'll call the commission meeting to order. Welcome to all of our guests. Hope you enjoy your time with us. Janelle, would you like to go through the virtual meeting guidance, please? Janelle, are you there?
Yes, one moment. I had a connection drop off for a moment.
Okay.
So I just need one moment to get us back in business here.
Yep.
And one more moment. Okay, I believe you see the welcome slide now.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, virtual meeting guidance. Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all. Number 1, please ensure your mic is muted unless you are speaking. Number 2, please state your name before speaking. Number 3, in general, please have your cameras on if possible. If you're speaking, you may turn your cameras off if you're experiencing technological challenges. And number 4, as a reminder, the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be, and the meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. With that, let's have a wonderful meeting, everyone, and welcome to our commission, our guest, and our district staff family. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Janelle. Next, we have announcements. Michael, do you have any announcements?
President Hubble, I do not have any announcements this morning.
Okay, so then we have the recognition of John Nelson, years of service to the district. Michael, are you going to do that?
Yes, I will. I'm pleased to read this proclamation and talk about John, who's retiring after 17 years of service with the district. He worked for us for a while and left and then came back. During his career, he started as a relief operator 1, and progressed as an operator 4, and he made countless contributions to the district, including operating biosolids applicators, working with facilities maintenance work group, maintaining district facilities, and helping ensure equipment function and reliability. His dedication to his work has benefited the district as a reliable source of information, and he maintained advanced DNR certifications. And we'd like to resolve that we want to congratulate John for his 17 years of service. I wish him the best in his future endeavors. Those of you who know John, there's many people on this meeting today who know John, and he is quiet and well-respected and knowledgeable. And he always had a way of making suggestions for bringing up a new way of doing things. And it was always thoughtful, and he always allowed new staff to hear it. And he was a really good mentor. He also helped when he left for a period of time with the operations team for a couple of months and filling in on shifts as we tried to fill his vacancy. And then he's also noted when we had a generator fire a couple years back, it was John who knew where all the appropriate fire extinguishers were and found them throughout the facility to help supply and suppress the fire before the fire department came. So he'll be sorely missed. John's a really good guy, and we wish him the best in his retirement.
Okay. Thank you very much, and congratulations, John, on your retirement. I hope you were able to enjoy it for a long time. Then that gets us to Kayla Gausmann, a facility maintenance trainee. And Eric, you're going to do the introduction.
Yep, I'm going to do that today in place of Brady Lesnar. So Eric Dundee, Director of Wastewater Operations and Reliability. So this morning we're introducing Kayla as our second trainee. We had a successful trainee and now she's our second. She's joining us as of October 17th as the trainee. She's had over 20 years of experience in the medical field as a dental assistant. Before that, she had experience as a farming background and with an excavation company. Also led some snow removal operations. So as you can think, that leads well into our facility maintenance work. So far, she's been very eager to jump in and help and good-natured and very willing to learn. Outside of work, she enjoys family time with her son and 2 daughters, significant other, and also her dog, which is a red lab named Jace. She enjoys the outdoor activities like snowmobiling, ATV riding, and hunting. So help me in welcoming Kayla.
Okay, welcome, Kayla. Hope you enjoy your time with the district as the trainee in facilities maintenance. Okay, thank you, Eric. That will move us to appearances by the public. Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Anybody from the public wishes to speak? I don't see any hands up. So we will move on. Okay, then takes us to the consent calendar, where we have the approval of the minutes from the meeting of the 13th of October, the cash statement operating fund, and review and approval of sanitary sewer extension plans. They look like basically 2 reconstructions or resurfacing. And then approval of transaction amount for Upper Yahara property exterior repairs. That's on property the district bought years ago for a possible treatment plant that never happened. So do we have any questions before we get a motion on the consent calendar? Okay, hearing no questions, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
It's Wilson. I'll move approval of the items on the consent calendar.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Murphy.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Murphy to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed?
Tom, Commissioner Clark, I'll abstain.
Okay, Commissioner Clark's abstaining. I think that still leaves us with enough to approve. I think Grant was on and Sarah were on. So, okay, that will take us to item 4. And then the A is we're in topics. The review and adoption of the 2023 operating capital projects and debt service budgets. Dana and Michael, you leading this off?
Yes, President Hubble, this is the budget as it was presented. And we, of course, had a public hearing on the budget. And this final budget reflects all the input from the commission and is ready for final approval. This approval will require a roll call vote. President Hubble, as you know, when you're inclined to approve it. So with that, I'll just turn it back over to you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Michael. Do we have a motion to approve the 2023 operating capital projects and debt service budgets?
This is Commissioner Eskridge. I'll move adoption of the budget.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Eskridge. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Bookland. I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Eskridge, second by Commissioner Bookland to adopt the 2023 operating capital projects and debt service budgets. And do we have any discussion or any other comments that anybody wishes to make before we take a vote, a roll call vote on the motion? we covered in pretty much detail at the last meeting in October, the October 3rd. I don't want to say the last meeting of October, the last meeting that we had, October 13th. So I don't see anybody hands up or indicating they want to speak. So Janelle, would you like to go through the roll call, please?
Of course. Commissioner Bookland,
Aye.
Commissioner Clark,
No.
Commissioner Eskridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Foster,
Aye.
Commissioner Havel,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. That will take us to item 4B, the review and adoption of the 2023 service charge rates and septage disposal rates. Ben, do you have anything you want to say on this?
Yeah, I've got a few slides here that I will share. Give me just a moment to bring those up. All right. Folks should be able to see my slide deck right now.
Yes.
We can see it. We can see it, Ben.
Thank you. All right, so Ben Nered, I'm the Capital Investment Policy Advisor with the district. I'm going to be presenting today on the 2023 service charge and septage rates. This is our typical annual process that follows budget approval, where we seek approval for the next year's rates that result from the budget. I'll be providing a little bit of just basic background on service charges for folks who need a refresher or members of the public who are new to the process. I'll be describing what the proposed rates are for 2023 and then ultimately seeking approval of the resolution to approve the 2023 service charge and septage rates. As I get into this, I want to mention one thing briefly. I'll talk a little bit more later. Members of the commission likely recall that I've been here in prior months talking about a broader review of our service charge rates that we are working on. That we've made no changes to our rate setting process for 2023, so none of that is reflected here. I'll be back, in the next month or two, likely to talk about the conversations that we've had so far with our owner communities. But I do just want to emphasize that for 2023, there have been no changes to our process. So getting into this, service charges are the main revenue source for the district. So the budget that was just approved included $50.5 million in service charge revenue. So this is our way to basically distribute those costs across our 25 billed communities. We bill those communities quarterly based on 7 different rates. So when I talk about approving service charge rates, what I'm actually talking about are 7 different rates, and I'll briefly describe what those are. This slide shows kind of the fundamental math of our service charge rates. So you can see it's essentially a division problem where we take the approved service charge revenue and divide that by the estimate that we have of next year's loads and flows that we think we're going to be getting to the wastewater treatment plant, such that when we bill our owner communities for those flows, for those loadings, we expect to get in revenue that budgeted, again, back to that budgeted $50.5 million service charge number. This slide shows just basically a screenshot of an example bill that one of our communities received a couple of years ago now. But I think it's a good way to just describe in a little more detail what our service charge rates are and how they work. So I'll kind of go from left to right, just sharing what you're seeing here. So the leftmost column labeled parameter, these are the 7 different rates that we set every year. So As you can see here, we are charging for volume, right? The amount of wastewater flow that's coming to the district from a given owner community. The next four, so CBOD, SS is suspended solids, TKN is nitrogen, and total P is phosphorus. Those are four parameters that speak to the strength of wastewater that we're receiving, right? So we're looking at not only how much wastewater are we receiving from a given community, but also what is the strength of that wastewater. And then finally, we've got two what we call population parameters, equivalent meters, which is essentially looking at, for a given community, what is their count of water meters that they have. So a standard residential home has a 5/8 inch water meter. A large industrial customer might have one that's much bigger than that. So that gets to the size of the community, but also kind of the makeup of residential versus industrial. And then finally, actual customers is, more or less what it sounds like, the count of customers that a given community has for wastewater services. So again, when I'm talking about our service charge rates, we're really talking about these 7 different rates, which we call rate parameters. Going again from left to right, quarterly quantity, that's basically just saying for this given community, for this given quarter, so we're charging these on a quarterly basis. This is what we measured this community sending us in terms of volume, strength, and population. The third column is the rate, right? So again, today I'm seeking your approval for our service charge rates. So these are our rates from, as I mentioned, a couple of years ago now, and we're essentially multiplying that rate by the quarterly quantity to calculate the quarterly bill, right? So you can see that in the rightmost column, this community was charged, those amounts for each of those 7 rate parameters, and then ultimately had a total bill of that $250 amount. So again, just to share, how do our rates function? What are our rate parameters? Another point to emphasize is that our rates are our wholesale rates. And what that means is that we are charging our 25 owner communities that are within the district service area. We are not charging, households, businesses, et cetera, directly, right? Those communities are taking our wholesale rates and passing those along to those, what we call retail customers, either as sewer charge rates, that might come alongside your water bill, or as part of your property taxes, which some of our smaller community sanitary districts do for their service charges. So again, we are at that, circled in red, wholesale rate level, and those are the rates that we're talking about today. Any questions just on kind of that basic background before I get into the rates themselves? All right. So for our rate setting process, we've essentially taken those budgeted service charge revenues that are in the budget, that $50.5 million amount. We've then estimated next year's flow and loadings for each of those 7 different rate parameters. What do we think we're going to be seeing next year? We then apply the calculated rates to those estimates. Those are the amounts that will go out to our communities in the form of our rate letters. So those are the estimated charges that our communities are using typically to set their own rates or their own charges. And then as we go through the year, as we go through 2023, we'll apply those rates to actual, measured flow and loads that our staff are taking. So we will necessarily see a difference between the dollar amounts in the rate letters that go out in terms of estimated charges and what we actually end up billing, right? Just because one figure is based on a projection, another is based on kind of the actual measured flows and loadings. So getting into the rates themselves, you can see here, most of our 7 parameters are seeing increases for 2023. The exception that stands out here is CBOD, and I'll take you back to that division calculation that I showed earlier, where we take our revenue requirement, divide it by our projected flows and loadings, What's happening here is our CBOD levels that we've been measuring have been rising in recent years, and we predict them to continue to rise based on, again, historic trends and some information about, continued industrial activity where, we're seeing that CBOD. So because the denominator in that math calculation has, continued to increase, that's actually driving the rate down. Now, even though the rate is going down, the amount of revenue that we expect to get for our CBOD loadings is increasing next year, along with all other rate parameters, again, commensurate with that, with the 8.89% service charge revenue increase in the budget. But did just want to point that out, that we are seeing the CBOD rate going down because of those increased loadings that we are seeing. I've got a handful of communities here that I thought were just interesting and worth mentioning. The CAR includes the full table of our projected changes in service charges for 2023, and this is comparing last year's projection made at this time to this year's projection made at this time. So City of Madison and Fitchburg, I wanted to note those two in part because those increases, the 11% and 19%, are higher than they would have been otherwise because of the town of Madison attachment that's occurring, right? So we are basically projecting an 80-20 split for the town of Madison's, what would have been their projected flows and loadings, their projected charges, 80% of that going to the city of Madison, 20% of that going to Fitchburg. So they would have been at 9% and 12% respectively, had that attachment not occurred essentially. City of Monona, I wanted to just point out because that's despite the fact that our service charge revenues are going up by that 8.9%, we're projecting them to be relatively flat, right? And that's again just the nature of our projections of our service charges. We see unique things happening by community because they have unique characteristics, and just as it happens, we are projecting them to be pretty flat, again, compared to last year's projection. And then Town of Vienna, Sanitary District number 1, I wanted to point out here because they're pretty high, right? So that may have stood out as you were looking at that table. And really what's happening there is that the projections that we made last year were too low, right? So as we've been actually billing them for this year, their charges have exceeded what we had projected for them, right? And that's kind of a risk of our current process where we are making those projections. And so we are basically catching up to that, new reality with next year's projections. And so again, if we're comparing this year's projections to last year's projections, that's why we see that pretty significant percentage change there of that 39%. So again, just thought that was worth mentioning, may have stood out to you. So just to summarize, our budget, that budgeted service charge revenue number and our projected flow and loadings that we expect to get are really the drivers of rate changes and impact our rates. Community impacts will vary though, right? Because of their unique characteristics and what we expect to see from them in terms of flow and loadings. And as I mentioned earlier, our rate setting process for this year has really followed our historic process, right? And so I will be back soon with an update on some of the owner community conversations that we've had this past year around our current process, and seek some additional guidance from the commission on next steps. But again, just to emphasize, this year was basically a steady state from a rate setting process perspective. I'll pause there if there are any questions. If not, I'll move into our septage rates.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Ben? I don't see any hands up, Ben, so go ahead.
Great. All right, so alongside our service charge rate setting process every year, we are also updating our septage rates. Those septage rates use our service charges essentially as a key input. So you can see here, it's a fairly similar math, calculation here in terms of our septage rates are equal to basically the cost of septage treatment that we're deriving from our service charge rates. We're saying, okay, these are our service charge rates. Here's what we expect from a septage perspective in terms of the cost of treating that septage, and then we're dividing that by the estimated volume of different types of hauled waste to obtain a rate for those different types. You can see those different types here along with the rate changes. So when we're talking about setting our septage rates, we are talking about setting rates for 5 different types of hauled waste: septic tank, holding tank, grease trap and settling basin, and portable toilet. And then we're also setting an administrative fee, which we charge to the haulers each month. You can see here, there are increases across the board, which is to be expected, again, because we're using our service charge rates as an input into our septage rate setting process, and because those service charge rates are generally increasing along with the revenue requirement increasing in the budget, that is driving those rates up. Now, there is, as you can see, a fair amount of variability by different type of hauled waste. That variability is driven by a couple of different things. One is just that we project, similar to our service charge rates, we project how much of those different types of waste we expect to get in the next year, and that goes into the rate setting calculation. And we're seeing variability in terms of how much, of these different types of hauled waste we are projecting to get. So holding tank in particular, we're expecting to increase, and that drives, again, in that numerator denominator math, that drives the denominator up, which in turn drives the rate down relative to the others. We also, our rates are also driven by the relative strength of waste that we're seeing in these different types. So we do testing of our hauled waste to see, not only how much of it are we getting, but how strong is that waste, using the same strength parameters that we saw for our service charge rates, meaning, phosphorus, suspended solids, CBOD, and nitrogen. And so those vary by types of hauled waste. And so that drives some of the variation that we're seeing here as well. But again, seeing increases here as we would expect with the service charge rates increasing as well. So that's what I've got on service charge rates and septage rates. I'm happy to, again, take any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I'll ask for your approval of the resolution.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ben? Anybody have any questions for Ben? Okay. So let's see. Do we have a motion to approve the service charge rates and septic disposal rates?
Wilson, I'll move approval of those.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson to approve the septage and disposal charge rates. Do we have a second?
Yeah, this is Clark. I'll second that.
Okay. A motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Clark to adopt the 2023 service charge rates and septage disposal rates. Any further discussions or comments by the commission? Okay, I see none. All those in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, we didn't need a roll call on that, did we, Michael?
I don't believe so, because we are just distributing the amounts.
Okay, yeah, we never usually do, right? Okay, that's what I can recall. Okay, thank you. So that motion carries on the approval of the septage, the service charge and septage disposal rates. That will take us to 4C, which is review and adoption of the 2023 connection charge rates and plan review, direct connection and annexation fees. Kurt, you're going to go through this?
Yes, I am. Let me figure out how to share my screen here. Janelle, is that something that you have to pass the puck to me?
No, Kurt, you should be able to, but it's Amanda, if you have trouble with that, I can pull yours up as well. You should just be able to hit share at the bottom. Share screen.
Share screen, there we go. All right, are you seeing anything yet?
No.
Okay, how about now?
Kurt, do you want me to just pull it up?
Sure, go ahead.
1 second here. There you go.
Fantastic. So good morning, commissioners. I'm Kurt Sauser, engineering technician. And I'm here today to present on the topic of review and adoption of 2023 connection charge rates and plan review, direct connection, and annexation fees. Next slide. As a reminder, these rates are for charges invoiced to customers when new lands connect to the sanitary sewer system. Connection charges are comprised of two different components: conveyance facility connection charges and treatment plant connection charges. This slide shows the details for the conveyance facility connection charges, or CFCC. Next slide. Here's a map showing the 32 different CFCC basins throughout the district. Highlighted in green near Fitchburg is the recently completed Nine Springs Valley Interceptor Improvements McKee Road to Dunn's Marsh project. The 8 basins upstream of that project are benefiting from the added capacity. This is where an additional $2.15 adjustment to the CFCC rates of the upstream basins is being recommended to recover project costs. Next slide. The second part of the connection charges rates is called treatment plant connection charges, or TPCC. This component of the connection charges is a single rate district-wide, which is based on the value of the treatment plant. Next slide. Here is a graph showing that 2023 will be year 5 of the 8-year phase-in of the full TPCC rate. As the capital improvements plan budget is approved annually, the 2026 value of the treatment plant, which is a target at the end of the red line, comes better into focus. After 8 years of phase-in, the TPCC rate charge will be representative of the full treatment plant value. Next slide. This slide is a table showing the 32 different conveyance facility rates combined with the treatment plant rate, representing the total connection charge rate for a particular basin. These are the connection charge rates that are being recommended to take effect on January 1st, 2023. Next slide. Now let's discuss the 2023 review and permit fees. These are fees identified in the district's sewer use ordinance for providing certain services. We reviewed costs related to each of these fees when setting the current 2022 rates. For next year, staff is recommending a 3% adjustment, which reflects the increase in this year's wages. And that is all I have to present today. I recommend approval of resolutions 2022-10-27 R6 and R7. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Kurt? So Kurt, I got a question. You know, I know there was the 3% wage adjustment. But wasn't that higher?
The 3% is based on the change from 21 to 22. So at the time
you're
of
behind.
a year behind, yes.
Okay.
Next year it'll probably reflect the current year's adjustment. Yes.
Okay, so you're behind, and so does that take into account the health insurance adjustments and the other benefits?
This was just a wage adjustment.
And shouldn't you be taking into account the benefit adjustments too to properly reflect the staff cost?
That's Todd. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is Todd Giebert, Capital Planning Engineer. Commissioner Havel, that the way the rates are set up, we are factoring in the benefit adjustment, and then we just inflate those costs from year to year. So we'll do another true up in 3 or 4 years probably, that will once again kind of reconcile where we're at. Does that help?
I think I understand that. Yeah. So it's the wage adjustment that every few years you make an adjustment for the benefits and other cost activities.
Correct. Based on actual cost then.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So anybody else have any other questions? Okay. I don't see any other hands up. Do we have a motion to approve the connection charge rates and the plan review and direct connection and annexation fee rates?
I'm happy to make that motion. Commissioner Meyer here.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Meyer. Do we have a second?
Second by Foster.
Second by, excuse me, second by Grant Foster. So we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Foster to approve the connection charge rates, plan review, and direct connection and annexation fees. Do we have any further comments or discussion? Okay, I don't see anybody. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. So that will take us to the review of proposals and award of contract for capital project infrastructure placement plan. Eric and Seth McClure, I think you're going to lead this off.
There we go. Sorry, I lost my mute button. All right. Everybody can see my screen, I assume?
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. So this project is the capital projects infrastructure placement plan. This is actually referenced in the CIP as plan for district properties. The commission action today is to review proposals and award the contract. But really what we're here to do is introduce this project to the commission because this will be something to pay attention to in the future as it helps district staff align our CIP projects, and some of the decisions made from this plan will be items the commission will want to be aware of. So what our goal here is with the new strategic plan is to come up with a campus master plan. Now, for those that are planners, we're not talking about a comprehensive plan to reimagine what the district properties look like. What we're trying to do is align our current CIP projects with our strategic plan. Some of the projects I'll get into here in the future slides, it's about choices. And those choices create consequences and sometimes ability for benefits to happen. You know, it's more about a SWOT analysis for those who understand that. We want to identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to what our CIP shows now, what it's going to show in the future, and how some of those decisions will affect other projects. So for all of those who know, very general outline of what we're talking about here. We're looking at really the treatment plant itself, its infrastructure there. Most people think about the plant area around Moreland Road, but we're also talking about where the Metrogrow building is across the street by the lagoons. One thing you see from the aerial photo is there isn't a lot of green space. And that green space we're talking about already has many pipes and demands on it. So this is where this project becomes very important, because we know that some of the CIP projects we're planning will already have conflicts with underground facilities and other things that are happening at the plant. So in this case, it's about minimizing those risks and avoiding extra costs, we'll call it. The other part is as the commission has been following the last couple of years, is that we have a lot of planning documents that we've set up. You know, we've done the 2020 Energy Master Plan that has decision points in it. The Biosolids Management Plan has decisions in it. Liquid processing is in process now. The one thing that comes up is in phase 3 for liquid processing is a lot of different infrastructure projects that can be solved in different ways. And then of course we have our 50-year master plan. Those are the documents that we use as reference. We go back to them all the time. There's also other needs. You know, we're talking about site safety. We're talking about security and office space in general. You know, we're a growing district, and office space is one of those things that has kind of crept up as not necessarily a treatment plant specific infrastructure item, but it is somehow important for us to do work. So I did want to just stop a second and talk about a holistic approach. So what I did is I just put boxes in for all of the already identified projects in the CIP and different locations they could be. For most people, you would see this and think, okay, we got a space for everything. What we have to be careful of is if you look in the center of the screen where septage receiving is, here's all the alternatives. That's just one project. Our biosolids study does the same thing. Our energy master plan with its discussions about biogas does the same thing. So what we're doing is we have all these singular projects that need to have a synergy to them. We need to align, and we need help with that. We need somebody to help us put all this together and put alternatives together so we can make the best choice we can for our infrastructure. So as I said, you know, this is identified in the CIP, and it's really about a comprehensive approach to a plan. You know, we need to be flexible because we know that regulations are going to change. So we can't just take up space knowing that we do have discussions about Lower Badger Mill Creek phosphorus. We know nitrogen's on the horizon. We have other emerging contaminants that are going to be looked at for regulations. So we have to make sure that we're putting this all together in a bundle. This doesn't mean we're going to make the actual decisions on what the choice is for those capital improvement projects, but what we're looking to do is avoid those costs of conflicts in there. So taking a look at alternatives and options. And those are the things that would come back to the commission to be shown, reviewed, you know, get comments on those. And for the official business, this topic is once again to award the contract. And we did have 5 firms, 2 submitted. We picked engineering firm TKDA for the cost of $275,000. And just for financial reference, this is in the 2022 CIP project. Just to talk a little about TKDA, this is the first time they have worked with the district, but what I can tell you from their proposal is they actually referenced our new strategic plan. they have a team of planners, landscape architects, and wastewater engineers as part of their team. So they really encompass what we're looking for in the idea of taking something that if you were in a municipality or government where it's more of a planning role, they understood that this is kind of a three-headed approach. You need somebody to be here to understand what I would call staff speak with our treatment plant and CIP, but then others that can kind of pull us out and facilitate better discussions. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Eric? Okay, Brad, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious about who the other firm was that submitted a bid.
Yeah, it was Strand Associates.
And was the firm selected, was that the low bid, or how did they compare? Just curious.
Yep, so they were actually a higher bid. They had, Strand had less hours into their project compared to TKDA. Really, once again, the idea is that TKDA brought in planners and landscape architects to be part of the group with engineers. So we thought it was valuable to have, a more holistic team to help us through this process.
Okay, thank you. I was also curious about the time horizon that we're looking at. I got the impression that you're not just looking at the CIP and the projects that are in the CIP, but essentially everything that we could conceive of that's in all of our facility related plans that might have an impact on the plant is what I'm gathering. And I'm just wanting some reassurance that this is we're not looking out 6 years, we're looking out as far as we can possibly see for projects that might have an impact on our limited land.
Yeah, I would actually say there's middle ground there. So we do have to look at the next 6 years specifically in the CIP. So for the capital improvement projects, we already have identified projects. On top of that, we do have projects identified outside that window. And then we're planning to use the 50-year master plan as some of our long-term visioning for that, if that helps.
Yep, it does. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Eric, we're currently under the, I think most of the properties are under the control of the town of Blooming Grove. So that's county zoning. And then I think it's not a few years away, right, Brad, that it switches to city of Madison. And so I don't know if that makes for different approval processes, as for projects, but that it may be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure what the date is. I think it's 2030, but I'm not not positive of that.
So it might be a few years yet. Okay, but it's just something to keep in mind how that things may change with zoning and approval processes and what you have to go through to get approval, and particularly with if we're encroaching on any neighbors. I know we have quite a bit of property, but
yeah, that's a good note, Commissioner Hovell. We do actually have went through the city of Madison process because we have done projects. We have our property is split with the city and the town. So yep, that's a good note.
Okay. Ezra's got a comment or question.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, good project, Eric. Thanks for bringing this forward today. I wanted to ask, just kind of picking up on what Tom and Brad were just saying, is any kind of stakeholder engagement part of the process here? And I'm thinking both about neighbors and overlying jurisdictions like Tom was hinting at. Is that a part of the scope for the folks who are getting this contract?
No, at this point, the stakeholders are district staff. It is not to say that it is not going to expand in scope to that, but we have to be careful to at least narrow the scope to infrastructure projects first. You know, the idea is that we have to take care of our business before we, you know, push it out to a larger stakeholder and even visioning session.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? I don't see any hands up. Do we have a motion on the award of the contract for the capital project infrastructure placement plan?
I would move approval, Murphy.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy. Do we have a second?
Commissioner
second.
Bookland, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by Commissioner Bookland to approve the capital project infrastructure placement plan. Any further comments or questions? Any further comments or questions? I don't see any. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. That will take us to item 5A, the Chief Engineer and Director report. Michael?
Thank you, President Hubble. I have a few announcements and things to report today. First, I'm really pleased, go to the next slide, to announce that Lisa Coleman is stepping up to become our next Director of Engineering. And you already know Lisa. She's been before you in the past. She's a project engineer too. That started with the department in 2019, or with the district. Before that, she worked as the Fitchburg Director of Public Works, and before that, she was a project engineer for the city of Madison for many years. Lisa has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and her master's in geotechnical engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. She is a registered professional engineer. I'm very excited to work with Lisa and for her leadership that she'll bring to the engineering department. So let's congratulate Lisa for her promotion.
Congratulations, Lisa, on your promotion. Nice to see that we're promoting inside. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Agreed.
Next, I have been periodically checking with Mayor Rhodes Conway on the status of filling the commissioner vacancy. And it sounds like they have identified a candidate, an individual who they will be moving through their process. So I just wanted to let the commission know that it looks like we'll be filling that vacancy in fairly short order. The third thing is the employee engagement survey. Mike Lipsky, our HR manager, and I have drafted a request for proposal to receive proposals for conducting an independent employee engagement survey and follow through with interpreting results. The district is seeking a science-based methodology to survey employees about opportunities to improve the employee experience and improve engagement. We have received final comments from the Employee Leadership Council, and we're hoping to get the RFP out in the next 2 weeks or so we can select a third-party administrator of our survey. Next slide, please. The district, one of the district's 2023 focus items is to complete a climate mitigation plan. And we have started to jump on this by preparing an RFP, bring a consultant in to help us with this work. Defining greenhouse gas emissions and doing the accounting will be an important part of this work, including, do we include process emissions as well as just normal CO2 from energy consumption. For example, nitrous oxide, which is one of the byproducts of our treatment process, is 300 times more potent than CO2. So this will be something that we'll have to analyze and have discussions with the commission with as we move forward with this process, and having a good consultant to help us with this will be, I think, critical. The U.S. Water Alliance, of which the district is a member, has developed a blueprint or a set of guidelines for what they're calling net zero plus to action for climate mitigation. And net zero plus is really looking, how do utilities define what greenhouse gas emissions are? How do they move to zero? And the plus is, how do you do it in an equitable way? So that is a blueprint that we're paying attention to in our efforts. And as part of that, I'm going to be part of a cohort that's going to Denmark next week, actually for a week, to visit several wastewater and water treatment plants and looking at how they're moving to net zero. And so I'll be part of that group. The U.S. Water Alliance is funding my participation in that group, which is a 10-city utility cohort that I'll be joining. And the work is being done in partnership with the Water Technology Alliance. That's part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is focused on innovative water utility initiatives and solutions. So it's a really wonderful collaboration, and I'm optimistic I'm going to bring back some ideas and focus areas from a policy standpoint for us to consider in our climate mitigation efforts. Next slide, please. This is clarifier 8. This is what a clarifier looks like empty. We've been talking, as part of the budget process and with the CIP, that our infrastructure is aging. And I thought it might be helpful to just give a few practical examples of how we are experiencing this here at the treatment plant with the age of our plant. This plant, go to the next slide. This clarifier here, you have 4 operators and a couple of engineers looking at the base of this clarifier. And what we learned in the last couple of weeks, that there has been some corrosion in one of the pillars that is inside that round area, and that has caused the arm that runs through the clarifier to start to sag and not perform effectively. This is just one example of a clarifier here, which is 80 years old, is now going to require a major repair over the next several months. And I can't even project what the cost will be. But what's important to note is this clarifier was built at the same time 3 other clarifiers were built. They've had a good run. They're 50 years old, but it's getting to the point where these repairs are going to start occurring more. So as I receive and understand the costs of projects such as this, I'll be able to share with you during future CED updates what those impacts will be on our budget. Next slide, please. And that's what a clarifier looks when it's full. There's that arm I was talking about that we noticed was deviating up and down because of the collapse of the center area. Okay, next slide. We do clarifier cleaning twice a year, and we do that after we do not have to comply with UV disinfection because as we clean these tanks, there is sediment and other things that washes into the final stages of treatment. You'll see on the left mark is pressure washing, and you can see along that rim where the scum has been cleaned and the clean concrete and the dirtier areas where that material is being removed and does go down into our final effluent area. The slide on the right is a picture of Louise, and you can see that many times that doing this work requires getting in various precarious situations. And one of the concerns, of course, we had with the increased UV disinfection period would be the possibility that we'd be doing this work in late season when we have ice and snow, and it would create safety issues for us. When I was out taking these pictures, actually, there were some flurries in the area, but not a safety hazard. So these are just some of the things that we're having to develop new protocols for with an extended UV disinfection season because our window of getting this work done is shortening by 2 weeks on both ends. So go to the next slide. I think that is all I have, and I'll just hold there to see if there's any comments or questions from the commission before I turn it back over to President Hubble.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Anybody have any comments or questions? So just one question, Michael. The other clarifier arms seem to be, you seem to have not been doing the variation in movement.
So far they haven't, but I think one of the things you have to investigate when we pull it all apart is what is the root cause here. We suspect since we coat all the metal, it does not corrode, but this piece in the middle from our inspection, it looked like it is not able to be coated. So when we empty the tanks, that's when we do have some rusting and corrosion. So part of our next steps will be to inspect those other tanks once we get a better sense for what happened here and see if we can do any preventive work.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I'm gonna go back to that. Will take us to the operations report. Alan, you're gonna do that?
I am Commissioner Hubble. I need to share screen. There we go. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Alan Grooms, Operations Manager for the district, and I'll be presenting the September operations and maintenance report for the plant performance. As far as the plant metrics, performance metrics been pretty good for the month of September. 2.4 milligrams per liter on effluent CBOD5. We're allowed 7 on a monthly average. So we're in good shape and well within kind of historical norms. These are just a reminder, it's a past 3 years, kind of this is the shaded area, kind of what that bracket looks like for historical performance over, say, the past 3 years. So CBOD 5 was added with this latest permit. So we've been operating on that for a couple of years now. So we've developed, I think, enough range that's become a pretty stable. Prior to that, those that have been on the commission longer might remember that was a BOD 5. It also accounted for the ammonia in the effluent. So in some respects, we were being double counted for nitrogen in that measurement. So when it went to CBOD 5, that separated the nitrogen and the biochemical oxygen demand. So that became probably a much truer representation of how our performance is. But it also meant those CBOD 5 numbers dropped a fair amount, and so we really had to build up a body of data there to get a good solid average. But I think at this point we've really got that. Ammonia numbers, as usual this time of year, we had plenty of air and good warm temperatures, so no real problems there. Phosphorus and suspended solids, you've heard me say this before, they kind of tend to track together. So we're a little bit high on the suspended solids and a little bit high on the phosphorus as well. The suspended solids, we had kind of a warm up here late in the season. So we were seeing the settling kind of come back into normal parameters in early September, but then later September into October, we had that warm up, and those warmer temperatures combined with the ammonia numbers being down, that means we've converted nitrogen, converted it to ammonia and then treated the ammonia. And so that forms nitrates, nitrites. And so then as we do denitrification, that forms nitrogen gas that can attach then to the solids in the clarifier and kind of lift those to the top. And so that can kind of knock our solids numbers a little bit, make those escalate a little bit, particularly in that, I would say we become at risk for that probably third week of July through oftentimes through September. Really kind of depends on how warm the season is. So, but that phosphorus also tracks those solids because we're doing biological phosphorus removal. Chloride numbers right in line with what we've been normally doing. Our flows remain pretty low. And so that's a dilution factor, but well within the permit limits. And then our fecal numbers for our disinfection continue to look really good. I think I was asked at some point about whether we're doing better with the new system. And I don't know if I'd say we're doing better with respect to limits, but we're doing it, we're using a little less power to do that. So it's really trying to optimize that value there. And so I think that's probably it's a more consistent value, not so many swings through the range. So what I've been seeing is that data range is tightening up, as we get more consistency. So any questions on the plant performance?
Alan, I might ask one if I could.
Sure.
This is September, so I'm guessing we're not seeing the effect of cleaning the clarifiers that Michael just showed us pictures of. But when Michael described how we wait till after UV season and some things end up in final effluent as a result of that cleaning, these numbers on TSS and phosphorus struck me as the kind of thing we might see. But am I right there, or what is it that we see that happens when we're doing that clarifier cleaning in terms of these numbers?
Yeah, Commissioner Meyer, you're spot on with how you're thinking about it. When we do that cleaning, a lot of what we've got is accumulated algae, things like that are in there. So a lot of what's coming down is it's algae, it's natural, but it's also it's biological. So it's going to show up in your solids, it's going to show up in your phosphorus. Probably not going to hit you too much on some of the other numbers, where the a little bit of an unknown in that is as we get into, so the disinfection season that we're going to be looking at, the pictures that Michael had were good pictures, but we're doing that in the latter part of October, and fairly decent weather, despite the snow flurries, not freezing temperatures. We'll be doing that next year. Right now, tentatively looks like the latter part of February, so starting around Valentine's Day. So think about those kind of temperatures, being out trying to do that with the pressure washers. Similarly, next year we'll be doing that in the first part of December. So think about your shopping season for the holidays. That's when we're going to be out doing that kind of weather. So that's going to be much different. That may knock down some of the algae growth and things like that may have already sloughed off. So it may not hit us quite as bad on that, but it is going to be kind of, that kind of, I do expect to see escalations in those numbers. So we do also get some relaxation in some of our numbers, though, seasonally. So that'll shift as we get later in the season. So, but you are thinking about it correctly, Commissioner Meyer, that those are the areas I would expect to see that show up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions there? Okay. Looking at the first of the resource recovery slides, the clean water, this is effluent discharge back to the return to the environment. We're looking, taking these numbers and kind of projecting out. We're looking at very similar numbers to 2021, barring, we did see some rain last week, but not really an increase in flows. So I would expect that we're going to be right there around 13.5 billion gallons at the end of 2022, barring some, really wet November or something like that. Biogas, we're continuing to trend higher. I actually need to look that up. I've been noticing this whole year our trend has been higher. That's consistent with the higher loads of the plant. We are making more biogas, and so that's leading us. If you've driven by the plant, you probably see especially those that have observed the plant over many years, see the flare run more than usual. Part of that is we've got an upgrade going on with an engine, so we're down a combustion source right now, but that's only part of the explanation. The other part is we are producing more biogas, and so that's kind of where, tying into something Eric said earlier, was talking about how the master plan, the energy master plan ties in with this. Some of these, they're projects we'd like to do to better optimize and use the biogas, but it's how to fit those in with more necessary projects to repair and upgrade, keep our infrastructure updated. So I need to look up, because I keep saying I think we're on a record pace. I need to look and see what the record for biogas production in a year is. I'd be willing to say we're going to make a serious run at it, if not set the new record. And then reused effluent is our W4 water. That's city water offset. That's used in places in the plant for like polymer makedown, things like that. So any questions on this? Okay. Biosolid storage, again, this is through the end of September. We've had a pretty good haul month. 21% full in the biosolid, the Metrogo storage tanks at the end of September. We're down around, we've had a pretty good month so far. In fact, it's largely the rain probably gave us a chance from operations to catch up and make some more. So our Metrogo crew has done a great job getting that out. We are in really good shape. As of this morning, the projections were we'd probably have enough storage if we didn't haul out anymore to get us to early May, which is probably tolerable. It's not ideal because it kind of depends on how early spring comes. I tend to be a believer in the law of averages. So we've been dry for a couple of years. So I'm kind of waiting for that to revert the other way and get a really wet year. So, but that's where we're sitting as of the end of September is 21%. Cake production, we're really not planning to make any more cake in 2022. We'll probably resume that right after the first of the year. Struvite production has continued to track along. That has been down a little bit for a number of reasons, and it's partly a interrelated effect to being so dry. There's a lot of a quote I've liked, I've used occasionally that at a conference is that you can't touch anything. A wastewater plant's like a spider web. You can't touch anything without everything else moving. And so this is kind of one of those examples where there's a decrease in the flow to the plant actually affects so many other things, including things like struvite production, our ability to efficiently harvest that. So in ways that aren't intuitive at first examination. So it's always kind of interesting with those relationships. I won't get completely into what I think is going on there, but I think that is a part of what we're seeing there. And then Metrogo, this is a function of what we're sending to the Metrogo storage tanks, not a function of think of it as production. This is the product we're making. We're right on track for a fairly normal year on that. We should come in around 33 to 35 million gallons of total Metrogo for the year. So about where we expect to be. Any questions on this slide? Probably talked too long. Okay, with that, I don't have anything else. So.
Okay, see a thumbs up from Ezra. Anybody have any questions? I don't see any hands raised, so thank you very much, Alan. Glad things are actually going pretty well. Then we'll move on to Vanessa is going to give the regulatory and legal.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you hear me all right? There we go. Great.
Yes.
So we had, once again, a pretty busy month for legal services this last month. For contract matters, we continued to work on a number of contract templates for easements and for real estate purchase agreements. There were also a couple of specific issues on some of those easements that we worked on. And then we also worked on a drying bed agreement. On the HR front, we had discussions on the Department of Labor regulations on regular rate and other pay status categories. We also worked on employee transition issues and discussed the ELC review process. And then we reviewed Act 10's impact on employee health insurance caps as well. On the regulatory side of things, we reviewed and responded to inquiries on the Lagoon project. We also participated in a discussion with DNR on the ongoing Badger Mill Creek issues. And of course, have been continuing to monitor PFAS regulations. In particular, this month, there was a lot of action at the federal level. That's all I have for an update, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, any questions for Vanessa? I don't see any hands up. Thank you very much, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Okay, that will take us to the future meeting schedule. So the next meeting on the 10th of November is in person. And we have that, the handbook. And then I think there's also a presentation on the security for the digital, our servers and our electronic communications and all that. And then Amanda, do you want to just kind of touch on the schedule for the Badger Mill Creek public meeting? So everybody's aware there have been some things sent out on that.
Yeah, I am happy to do that. Thank you, President Hubble. Amanda Wagner, Communications and Public Affairs Manager. I did send over last week just a couple changes to those two meetings for Badger Mill Creek, our listening sessions. So our in-person meeting at the Verona Public Library has moved from November 15th to November 30th. We needed to just adjust the date to accommodate some staff scheduling. So again, that is at the Verona Public Library. It is 6:15 doors open and 6:30 the presentation starts. We'll have a short presentation and then move into listening sessions with the community. There is, I don't want to say it's limited in that very few people can attend, but we do have a room capacity there. So please RSVP to that. I believe I included the link in the calendar update, and I will double check after this meeting to make sure that I did. And then also we are offering a virtual public listening session to make it available to individuals in our other owner communities. And that new date is Thursday, December 8th. That will be virtual via Zoom, and that will start at 6 p.m. It will have a similar format to our in-person minus the light refreshments to start the meeting. And we will move into breakout rooms for listening sessions. So I do know that that link is not in the calendar request I sent out, so I will get that updated for everyone as well. So if you can attend, please do RSVP for either or both of those.
Okay, thank you very much, Amanda. Anybody have any questions on the meeting schedule? So just be aware, the next meeting, the 10th, is in person at the district. Okay, that will take us to future agenda topics. Anybody have any future agenda topics? Anybody have any other business?
I do,
Ezra,
Tom.
you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to check. I don't know how this works, but I was running late and missed the vote on the budget this morning. But if there's any possibility that I can register my vote in favor of the three proposed budgets, agenda item topic A, I'd love to vote. I'd love to do that again, if it's kosher to do so.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Vanessa, what's your opinion?
I'm not sure about that either.
It's Wilson, if you want. I think what you can do is reflect in this part of the minutes that Ezra made that indication. So
yeah,
that's the cleanest way to do it. If that's okay with Ezra, that'd be the easiest, safest, and best way, at least in my.
I know it was a
humble
roll
opinion.
call vote. You're right. So I understand.
Right.
It makes sense, and I'm happy to do it that way. Just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Tom.
that was kind of my thoughts too, Tom. Just put it in the minutes at this point. Okay, thanks, Ezra. So we're up to adjournment. Do we have a motion?
I got that. It's Wilson. I'll move. We
Commissioner
adjourn.
Wilson to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Clark.
Second by Commissioner Clark. So motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Clark to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? None. Motion carries. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you.